Hello everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for a great conference so far. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Shai Gretz. I'm from IBM Research Haifa Labs, where we are developing Project Debater, the latest IBM Grand Challenge. Now, before we describe Project Debater, we need a short history lesson to start with. So, some of you may know IBM Research has an interesting history when it comes to grand challenges. In 1997, IBM developed Deep Blue, which was the first computer to defeat a world champion in chess in Garry Kasparov. In 2011, IBM built Watson, which was the first computer to defeat trivia champions in the TV show Jeopardy! Shortly after this event, an email was sent to the thousands of researchers of IBM around the world, asking what should be the next idea for IBM to pursue as a grand challenge. One of the people who responded to this idea was Dr. Noam Slonim from the Haifa Labs. He, together with his office mate at the time, suggested this crazy idea, of a system that could participate in a full live debate against a human being. He sent the committee a single slide per their request not to be overloaded with too much information, describing this idea. And after a long review process, which took about a year, this idea was accepted as IBM's next grand challenge. And Dr. Slonim became its principal investigator. Development started slowly with a small team, but eventually it grew. And at the beginning of this year, in February of 2019, Project Debater was debuted to the world in an event held in San Francisco, where it competed against Mr. Harish Natarajan, which is an acclaimed champion debater. And interestingly enough, this debate was in a very similar format to what was described in that single slide approximately 7 years ago. So this event garnered a lot of media attention. We got over 2 billion social media impressions and hundreds of newspaper articles covering the event. The entire debate, if you're interested, is available on YouTube. Soon we will see a segment from it, but before we do that, I want to explain the format of a debate. So in a debate, we have a debatable topic, referred to in the debate jargon as a motion. In our case, it was the topic of whether we should subsidize preschools. Now, this motion was not seen or trained by the system. This is a new topic for the system to handle. In a debate, there is a government which supports the motion. In our case, it was Project Debater, and an opposition which contests the motion. In our case, Mr. Natarajan. Each side has 4 minutes to deliver an opening speech, then 4 minutes of rebuttal, and then 2 minutes to summarize. And it should be noted that this is a fully automatic debate. There is no human intervention. The only sentence that was manually written was the sentence where we greet our opponent. But other than that, there is no human in the loop. So let's watch the video, and then we can continue the discussion.
Greetings, Harish. I have heard you hold the world record in debate competition wins against humans, but I suspect you've never debated a machine. Welcome to the future. When we subsidize preschools and the like, we are making good use of government money because they carry benefits for society as a whole. For decades, research has demonstrated that high-quality preschool is one of the best investments of public dollars, resulting in children who fare better on tests and have more successful lives than those without the same access. Secondly, a few words about poverty. While I cannot experience poverty directly and have no complaints concerning my own standards of living, I still have the following to share. Regarding poverty, research clearly shows that a good preschool can help kids overcome the disadvantages often associated with poverty. The OECD has recommended that government subsidize pre-primary education to boost performance in poor areas.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here for this historic event. And it certainly was a pleasure to listen to Project Debater. There was a lot of information in that speech, and lots of facts and lots of figures. The problem, though, is the reality of subsidizing preschools is one which does not deal with the underlying problems in society. If you massively increase the number of people going to preschool, they are all going to be the ones going to the high-quality preschools. In a competitive environment at the age of 3 or 4, when you're learning that that other child is potentially better than you, when you realize you aren't necessarily as talented as someone else, that huge psychological damage for many children may mean that preschool is actively harmful.
Among other things, I think Mr. Natarajan suggested that preschools should not be subsidized because this will reduce their quality. I would like to offer a different view. I disagree with my opponent. Subsidizing preschools will have no negative effect on their quality. If anything, the opposite is true. One of many reasons is that subsidizing attracts more skilled and qualified people to the field, improving the quality of preschools for all. My opponent claimed that preschools are harmful. I believe my argument suggested that the benefits outweigh the potential disadvantages. I touched upon 3 issues: children, students, and crime. Specifically, I noted that preschool education improves children's development. In addition, I suggested that attending preschool helps students succeed. And a final point to consider is that preschool can prevent future crime. We should subsidize preschools. Thanks for your attention.
Okay, pretty cool, right? So in this short segment, we saw the debater raise arguments in favor of its side of the motion. We saw it rebut arguments that our opponent made. And we also saw it say a joke here and there. So I'm guessing that a question in most of your minds are, actually, how does it work? Okay? So actually, the system is so simple, I can fit everything into a single slide. I'm just kidding, of course. The system is very complex. There are a lot of components and subcomponents that interact with each other. In the next few minutes, we will discuss these main components and capabilities of Project Debater. Now, the first thing to consider is that Project Debater learns to debate in general. We do not learn to debate specific topics or train on specific topics. This does not mean that Project Debater does not train on topics to achieve this goal. If you go to a debating course, you will train and practice on specific topics, but your end goal would be to debate a new topic. The same for Project Debater. Now we will move to describe, Now we will move to describe what happens when Project Debater is faced with a new motion, with a new topic. So the first thing we need to do is we need to retrieve arguments. This process is called argument mining. So where do arguments come from? We have a very large corpus. Corpus is a collection of texts of around 400 million newspaper articles, scientific journals, and Wikipedia. These articles are split into sentences, which go through a certain linguistic pre-processing stage and put into an index for fast retrieval. Overall, we have around 10 billion sentences to work with. Now, our arguments are divided into 2 types, claims and evidence. Claims are short, concise phrases that state the argument that we want to make. Evidence are sentence-long phrases that usually cite research or studies that further support our side of the debate. Now, both claims and evidence need to adhere to 3 points. Number 1, they need to be related to the topic. Number 2, which is more subtle, they need to be argumentative. So for example, if I say that preschools are part of the education system for young children, that's related to the topic, but it doesn't really argue something. But if I say that preschools can help young children succeed later in life, that's where I'm arguing something. I'm trying to convey the message that we should support preschools. The third point that they need to adhere to is that we need to make sure that they are in the right side of the debate. Okay, this is called stance classification. And if you can imagine how embarrassing it can be to state a very good argument to the other side instead of our side. So this needs to be performed with a very high precision. This process of argument mining is done for both sides of the debate. So why do we do it for the other side as well? We want to prepare arguments. We want to predict what our opponent will say and prepare our rebuttal for it. So following this process, we have hundreds or thousands of arguments. And now we want to construct them to a speech. So there are a few more steps that need to be done. First, remove redundancy. We don't want to say the same argument multiple times. We then cluster arguments together surrounding common themes that are in the data. And finally, we select the arguments that are most interesting, and through a text-to-speech algorithm, we play the speech that is presented on stage. Another component of Project Debater is that of modeling human dilemma. This component deals with inserting knowledge from the debating world into the system. There are certain principled arguments that are related to multiple motions, not to specific motions. For example, let's consider the issue of banning something, like banning alcohol or banning cannabis. There is a principled concept related with these motions, and that is the concept of black market, right? If you ban something, it will help a black market succeed. We use machine learning algorithms to identify when it is correct to use principled arguments in the context of this motion. Now, notice this is not a trivial task. For example, if you consider banning breastfeeding in public, then obviously black market is not an appropriate concept. So let's summarize the 3 unique capabilities that Project Debater brings to the table. Number 1 is the capability of data-driven speech writing and delivery. This is similar to a news editor or someone who writes an opinion article in a newspaper. We can digest massive corpora, present the pros and cons in the data. We can structure everything and build a narrative from it, and we can deliver it with clarity and purpose. The second capability is that of listening comprehension. The debating system needs to listen to a speech of 4 minutes of its opponent and identify the key claims that he or she make. This is different from personal assistance, where the commands are usually short and simple. And the third capability, which we just discussed, is that of modeling human dilemma. So let's talk about the connection between Project Debater and culture. So far, we have discussed a general purpose system that can debate virtually anything as long as it's covered in our corpus. But we can make Project Debater adaptable to specific cultures. For example, one way to do that is to replace our corpus. Let's take an example. If we want to debate, if we want the arguments to come from religious sources, we want to reflect views that are present in the religious context of certain religions. We can replace our huge corpus with that of religious text, and the pros and cons will come from there. Another thing to consider is that if we want to address certain audiences, we can do that by changing the corpus accordingly. For example, if we want to address young children, or we know our opponent is a young child, we can have the system portray arguments in a lower register or in simple English. And another interesting point to consider is that sometimes debating concepts are not common to all cultures. So let's take, for example, the concept of the US Constitution. This is a critical concept when it comes to debating in the United States, okay? When you debate issues such as gun control, freedom of speech, etc. But if you debate these issues in Portugal, it's not a principled concept. It's maybe nice to bring it up, but it's not as principled as it is in the United States culture. AI grand challenges have been with us for a long time, for 70 years, since the 1950s. Games such as checkers, chess, and AlphaGo, we have all witnessed large improvements in those areas. But there are a few distinctions to be made between these games and Project Debater. Maybe the main distinction is that when you see an end game, an end board of such a game, it's easy to know who won, right? If you look at the end board of a chess game, you can tell if the black and white, or the black or the white won, if you know the rules. And it's easy to give the system this, the model this knowledge. And what is usually done in these cases is that when you build such a game, you train the system to compete against each other with different configurations. And the system can learn which configuration is the best by checking what won the most. We can't do that with Project Debater. A debate is an subjective competition. It's not easy to tell who won in a debate. Debates are usually decided either by an audience or by official referees. So we can't train the system against each other. We believe that this puts this grand challenge as a new frontier for AI grand challenges, which deals with questions which are not black and white, maybe the more challenging and interesting questions in our daily lives. So, through these challenges, we made significant scientific strides. We published over 30 papers in various conferences and scientific journals, all this time with this end goal of building a general purpose debating system. But at the end of the day, we would like to build something practical, applications that you, the audience, can use. So following a thinking process that was made last year, we started to develop what we refer to as speech by crowd. Now, the idea is this. When you make a decision, you weigh the pros and cons, right? And you can do that either by reading a lot of material and doing extensive research, or you can consult with people and ask them what do they think about the topic. So we took this latter approach, and we built this platform. The Speech by Crowd platform enables you to present a large crowd of thousands of people with a debatable topic or any question that you have in mind, collect from them arguments, analyze them for pro or con, and highlight the main themes and arguments and build around them an interesting narrative. So what are the challenges of such a system? Well, some of the challenges come from the underlying technologies of Project Debater, right? Knowing when an argument is pro or con, removing redundancy, and extracting the main themes. And there's also a subtle issue of argument quality. When you present someone with two arguments, they can usually say which argument is better, which argument is phrased better, has better grammar, and has more impact in the context of this topic. Throughout the development of speech by crowd, we have trained a model that attempts to learn the mechanisms of such a prediction. So, to summarize, we believe that by using Project Debater and by using the speech by crowd platform specifically, we can build a new communication channel between decision makers on one side and people impacted by these decisions on the other side. Consider, for example, a company which has many customers and wants feedback from them regarding products or services that the company provides. Consider, for example, an employer which has many employees and wants to collect feedback from them regarding his or her performance. And consider government officials who want to collect feedback from citizens regarding government policies. We believe that by using debating technologies and speech by crowd, we can help make better informed decisions in these use cases and more in years to come. This is our team, and thank you for your attention.